What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. Only two of us tonight. Jeremy busy, Cora not available tonight, so me and Tex are going to have to break down this movie. A lot of thoughts from a lot of different directions about this movie. I have a feeling that me and Tex are going to, I think we're going to have plenty to talk about just the two of us tonight. But yeah, here to talk about the 2000 hit Hollow Man, starring the great Kevin Bacon, as is so often praised by Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. First with me, obviously, a couple of people missing tonight because they couldn't make it, but here with me is the shape from the Lone Star State, our man Tex. What's up, brother?
I can't help but feel but that preacher from that small town who was against dancing had the right idea in mind because, if Kevin Bacon hadn't got out of line in that movie, he may not have became invisible and went nuts. But, just, maybe you don't have to go footloose is all I'm saying. You never know what you're
saying. If you just let him dance, he wouldn't have lost his shit. Way to go, John Lithgow. Way to poison this whole guy.
Well, I mean, when you got to get footloose, you kick off your Sunday shoes, right? So, it is what it is.
But, yeah, an interesting movie, to say the least. Again, a bit, what is this movie? We'll talk about later. But, I mean, horror, action with a lot of kills. I mean, this movie comes from a lot of different places. There's a lot of things to like and not like about the movie, obviously. But let's delve into it right now. What we are talking about is, I had a lot of pictures for this one, is Hollow Man. Hollow Man is a 2000 American science fiction horror film directed by the great Paul Verhoeven, written by Andrew W. Marlowe, and starring Elisabeth Shue, Kevin Bacon, Josh Brolin, pre-MCU, Kim Dickens, Greg Grunberg, who's been a side character, a whole lot of stuff, Joey Slotnick, Mary Randle, and William Devane. The film is about Dr. Sebastian Caine, a scientist who volunteers to be the first human test subject for a serum that renders the user invisible. When his fellow scientists are unable to restore him back to normal, he becomes increasingly psychotic and eventually goes on a killing spree. The film received negative reviews, but was a financial success, grossing $190.2 million worldwide against a budget of about $95 million. And it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects in 2001, losing to Gladiator, which kind of won a lot of awards that year, so it's understandable. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of just 26% based on 118 reviews, with an average rating of 4.3 out of 10. The site's critics' consensus states, quote, despite some awesome special effects, Hollow Man falls short of other films directed by Paul Verhoeven. This flick over time degenerates into a typical horror film. Roger Ebert, the late great Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, gave the film 2 stars out of 4 and complained that Verhoeven wasted potential by taking an invisible man and doing nothing more than having him go berserk, while ultimately feeling that the film is merely a slasher film with a science gimmick. Ebert praised the special effects, calling them intriguing and astonishing, but felt the film lacked the imagination and wit of Verhoeven's best films. A direct-to-video standalone sequel called Hollow Man 2, starring Christian Slater and Paul Facinelli, was released in 2006. It was not well liked. Let's just say that. Straight to video is usually all you need to know about that movie. But I'll go to you, Tex. Give me a brief, quick synopsis of what you thought of the film before we move forward.
Well, I've said it before, but this is my favorite Invisible Man film. Even going back to the classic, Invisible Man from Universal in the 30s or the 40s, whatever. Kevin Bacon in this film, yes, Kevin Bacon's done some horror, but how he hasn't done more, I'll never know, because he is so good at it. And this is one of those rare occasions where your villain is the star of your film and you're following them through the whole thing. And it's just, this movie's it's not fun to watch at times. That's the wrong way to put it, but it's a very captivating film, I guess is the right way to say. And, the journey into madness has been done a lot of times. This is not the first time it's been done, but, I think this is an essential watch especially if you're a horror fan. The 2000s era of horror is, I've said it before, but I like the 2000s era as much as I do the 80s. And the 2000s do not get the love that they deserve, but, this is one of the better ones, I think. I really enjoy this movie.
Yeah, for me, Kevin Bacon more often than not can do no wrong. Elisabeth Shue, kind of the same way. They're both they're both Hall of Famers in my book. Not, you know, and then this was a very young Josh Brolin, who was probably, I mean, let's face it, he was only what 15 years removed from the Goonies. So I mean, he was still, I mean, well, obviously, you know, way before the MCU with the Thanos stuff. But yeah, to me, it really is kind of. I think, you know, the Roger Ebert thing says it best. The movie tries to transition from like a weird sci-fi psychological thing into a straight up horror, and it was very abrupt. Because it went from like that into like watching his descent into madness, and then it was just all the kills, and I was like, I feel like it could have been less of a choppy viewing experience. Still an entertaining movie, sure, but there's a lot there. It's just the pacing of it didn't seem quite right. It makes jumps from what it was trying to be pretty quickly. It doesn't really give you time as a viewer to adjust to it. You know what I mean? I like Kevin Bacon.
Right.
I mean, Kevin Bacon's good in it. I mean, you know, I got a piece of trivia about why he was cast earlier. That kind of makes sense. I mean, we're so used to seeing him as the good guy. We're so used to seeing him as Red McCormick in Footloose or whatever. We forget that he's one of those people that he can kind of melt into a role like this, where he's the bad guy. I mean, he's pretty clearly the bad guy from the jump in the movie. I mean, even though things start off well enough, he starts off well-intentioned, just another hardworking scientist who just happens to be really, really smart. But you kind of see that he's got this weird, I don't want to call it a God complex, but I'm better than you because I know sciencey stuff, and I'm smarter than you because I understand the ramifications of this where nobody else does. The kind of things that usually get a guy into trouble in a story like this. You know what I mean? So watching his mental state fall apart and him really, you know, devolve into the bad guy, like almost a supervillain, really, over the course of a couple hours was interesting to watch. Elisabeth Shue overacts a lot in this movie. I mean, she's not a bad actress at all, but she's been in great stuff. But there was I noticed that a lot of her line delivery in this was not fantastic. I was kind of like she was still kind of in 80s mode where she was pushing it a little bit. She was forcing dialogue, and I was kind of like, you could have delivered that line a little bit better. But that's just me. But I'll get into that in a minute. Right now, let's talk about the director again. We just did RoboCop a couple of weeks ago. Paul Verhoeven directed RoboCop.
Yeah.
Paul Verhoeven directed this. This is actually the last movie that Verhoeven has made for an American production company. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago that he's got one getting ready to come out. But I mean, as of right now, this is the last American film he did. After this film, he went back to Europe and you know, did a lot of and has basically just been doing his film career there. But I don't know. What do you think? Paul Verhoeven. I mean, we went through his list with, you know, when we talked about RoboCop of like Starship Troopers and Basic Instinct and all that. I mean, is this Verhoeven some of his best work? Do you think?
I think this may be my favorite Paul Verhoeven film. Obviously, I mean, I praise RoboCop. I mean, who doesn't love RoboCop? I praise Showgirls. I praise Starship Troopers, and I praise this. But when I stack all of them up and measure them, which one comes out on top? I think it's this one for me. And I said it on the RoboCop review, but the thing that I like about Paul Verhoeven is he's a grindhouse exploitation kind of director. He takes the things that make you cringe, that you don't like, that make you feel uncomfortable, and he puts it on the screen. I mean, he doesn't apologize, whether it's like the gore in this movie, the sexual assault stuff in this movie, all of this stuff that a normal person will go, ooh, that's a bit much, is, you know, it's a whole genre within itself. I mean, from I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, a lot of these movies like this that came out of the 70s and the 80s that are very hard to watch at times. He's brought from like the 70s, 80s period to the 2000s here with his films. And I think this may be his best work for me anyways. And it's not because of the sexual assault and all of that, but he's so, I mean, he just doesn't give a damn. He's got like that Rob Zombie-esque thing about him of, here's what I'm putting on screen and you like it or you don't. And, you know, he doesn't apologize for it. I always appreciate that in a director, especially in a horror director, because if you're just making clean little polished PC films, you might as well go watch the Conjuring movies that are PG-13 and aren't going to scare anybody. So, the guy's not afraid to go there. I'd love to see him do more work, and I mean, give him a big budget slasher. I think he could do wonders with it. I'm a fan of this.
Yeah, I can't say this is my favorite Verhoeven film. I think RoboCop's just a better film. I think Basic Instinct is probably a better film. Honestly, as much as it gets shit on, I think Starship Troopers, is a better film. I think the way he works satire.
I love that movie too.
Oh yeah, it's a guilty pleasure for sure. I know a lot of people consider it one of the worst movies ever made. I'm not gonna lie, I think that movie's a lot of fun. But yeah, it's just Ebert was right. There was a lot of missed opportunity in this. He could have made this a lot more about satire. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the trivia area, what Verhoeven thinks has thought of this film over the years. But yeah, there was a lot of missed opportunity. There was worldview, very subtle in RoboCop. There was very subtle worldview in Starship Troopers and stuff. He kind of put his opinion on the state of humanity out there on film in these other movies. Whereas this movie, I feel like he was just like, I'm going to try to go big budget action movie with a lot of deaths and not really give it a lot more substance than that. I mean, other than the descent into madness that Kevin Bacon's character goes through over the course of this movie, there's not really anything personable about any of these characters that was really enthralling. It was kind of dead like that. So I mean, is it a decent enough action movie? Sure, it's average. I don't know that I would call it his best work, not at all. Like I said, Starship Troopers I think is better for all the hate that's received over the years. I think RoboCop is a much better film. That's probably my favorite Verhoeven film. Even Basic Instinct, the way that it kind of shows, and we just lost text, the way that it kind of shows the madness of the woman, kind of her subtle evil tendencies. I think is a much better display of his directorial talents. But over the years, and like I said, I'll go into this more in the trivia part. Over the years, even Verhoeven has kind of said, this wasn't my best movie, and he said it in much stronger terms than that. But I'll kill a little more time until Tex decides to get back on. Somebody must have called him again. Somebody wants a show. The last couple of shows have been really, really lucky, but nope, it's always wants a show. But I don't know. I mean, I'll if you guys in the chat, if there's something about Paul Verhoeven that you like, again, his from the late 80s up until the 90s, he was putting out really, really good movies. But up to after this kind of leaves, and all of his movies were good, this is probably the one that I think misses, and he kind of thinks that too, from what I've read. But we'll get to that a little more later. Let's talk about the cast. I mean, again, Elisabeth Shue, Kevin Bacon, you can't knock what they are. Then you add in a young Josh Brolin to make things better, and then some other people. William Devane is actually one of my favorite character actors. I mean, he's been in so many things that I've really enjoyed. He played the Secretary of State for a couple episodes of The West Wing. He played the president for a while in 24. I mean, he's a very authoritative figure. I feel like he walks in the room and he feels like a great politician, you know what I mean? And I love to see him on screen. I don't know, Tex, what do you think about the cast? And other than maybe Shue and Bacon, and we lost Tex again. That's fantastic. Right as I'm talking to him. Boy, Tex is having all kinds of issues tonight. But yeah, I mean, so for me, the cast is really, really good. I mean, Kevin Bacon at this point already a huge star. I mean, he had been since probably the late 70s. Elisabeth Shue, again, going all the way back to her being kind of the teen idol of the 80s, and then her career has always been fairly steady, and she's been very, very good most of the time. I honestly, I can't think of anybody that really stands out other than one of these two. This whole movie really is kind of about their obviously fractured relationship, because he is a bit of obsessed workaholic, and her being not just a person of science, but being a woman who wants a relationship away from the lab. Their relationship didn't work out because he is so hardcore into what he does. The relationship stuff is very, very secondary to him, or even for the most part, not important. Now that let's see, is Tex back again?
Sorry, we got high wind. It blew me off the signal. Sorry. Anyways, I'm back. Folks. Sorry about that. Anyway,
yeah, Yeah, I was just saying that nobody other than Elisabeth Shue or Kevin Bacon really blows me away in this movie. I mean, Josh Brolin is even kind of a side character in all this. He's not really that important to any of it. I don't know. What do you think of the cast overall? Because it's a very small cast. This whole movie is very kind of contained in the lab for the most part. So it wasn't a great cast to have. But I mean, what did you think of the cast of the movie overall, and who stood out most to you?
Well, I mean, obviously Kevin Bacon's head and shoulders above everybody here. That he's got more charisma than everybody combined. Elisabeth Shue, I hate it. I mean, I know this is more to the costume and department, whatever, but I hated her haircut in this movie. Every time I see it, she looks like a freaking poodle. It drives me crazy. But yeah, we get a younger. I don't know what Josh Brolin's exact age was in this film, but he's not the Josh Brolin of today. Obviously, this was 23 years ago. The one person that's not really credited in this movie that's really a side character that I wish had gotten more time is the neighbor, the one that he assaults in her apartment. Her name is Rona Mitra. She's been in a lot of kind of B movies and horror and stuff. She plays the daughter of the head of the vampires in the underworld movie Rise of the Lycans. She's obviously minimal in this film. She's more of a background player if anything, but she's another one that I enjoyed. And the Carlos, the heavier set guy that gets choked out by Kevin Bacon later on in the film. He went on to Heroes, the TV show, and I've seen him he's done quite a few things, but never really became a huge star. But I mean, outside of Kevin Bacon and Josh Brolin, a lot of these guys are just general actors that never really broke out. But for this film, it works. I mean, realistically, this is a mad scientist tale in his laboratory, and instead of being in Transylvania or some little village in England, it's in a underground medical facility. And you don't have to have. I mean, how many times have we said on this channel? You don't have to have stars to make a good horror film. Most times you might get one or two names to just put on the poster of a movie. And, the cast works for what it needs to because most of them. Oh, and the redhead, I can't remember her name, but she ended up doing Fear the Walking Dead. She carried that show for I think 4 or 5 seasons. So, I mean, there's a lot of actors here that.
Huh? That's Kim Dickens. That's Kim Dickens.
Kim Dickinson, yeah. I couldn't remember her name, but you've got a lot of talented people that, I mean, have continued to work, but, no huge names. But, like I said, for horror, you don't need it. And, I think it works. I mean, obviously, most of these people are just there to be, killed later on in the film, as a lot of horror films like to do, but, that is what it is. So, no, I think the cast works great. I mean, they're understated, but it's not Shakespeare, and I know we use that a lot, but I think it works well. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, like I was saying, like outside of Elisabeth Shue and Kevin Bacon, there's not really a whole lot of work for the rest of the cast to do. It seems like Josh Brolin's character is there mostly to be a part of what pisses off Sebastian, what pisses off Kevin Bacon's character. It seems like he's just there to be kind of an antagonist to him a little bit. There, I mean, again, the rest of the cast, kind of like you said, they're really just there to be kind of like fodder for the killer towards the end of the movie. They're there to die later on, and you kind of get that feeling pretty early, especially if you know anything about what this is based on. Of course, the kind of the retelling of the Invisible Man story.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, outside of these two, there really wasn't much to dazzle me. I mean, I like Greg Grunberg. Grunberg. He's actually buddies with J.J. Abrams, which is why J.J. Abrams puts him in a lot of shit. He actually had a small role as one of the X-wing fighters in the J.J. Abrams Star Wars stuff, Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
But
good for him.
But yeah, I mean, there's just not much past these two, and while the descent into madness is a fun thing, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. There's already, I mean, there's really not much character-wise about this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, Kevin Bacon, you can tell even before they do the serum test, you can tell he's already a bad guy. I mean, from the way he's doing the animal testing in the lab and everything else, and you can just see in his eyes when he's lying to, to get to phase 3 when he knows it works, but he wants more time. You can see the Dr. Frankenstein inspired uh, choices that he made for his character in this film. And I think it was needed for that because obviously, I mean, we're once he jumps quick, but he was already a bad guy to begin with.
Well, he's obviously got this narcissistic personality. You know what I mean? He's one of those people. It's like I know better than everybody else, and that's usually kind of one of the first signs of somebody kind of losing their shit and doing something extremely stupid and killing a lot of people, which is kind of how this movie goes. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, past Elisabeth Shue and Kevin Bacon, there really wasn't much to dote on about this movie as far as the. It's not that the actors are bad, not at all. They've all had pretty good success. I mean,
no, they're just minor roles.
And that's great, but their roles are really, like I said, other than just being lambs for the slaughter later on in the movie, they really don't serve much of a purpose. You know what I mean?
Right.
But let's talk for a minute about the effects. I mean, this movie's loaded with them. And look, you're talking about the year 2000, the turn of the millennium. We're coming out of the 80s and 90s where the effects game in Hollywood really blew up over the course of those 2 decades because that's kind of what movies were about for a long time with special effects and shit like that. I mean, what did you think about the effects? I feel like they've not aged very well, but on the other hand, they're still not bad. We haven't seen anything really like this since. So there's not a whole lot to compare it to, but it's fairly interesting. I don't know. What do you think about the effects? Do they still work for you?
Oh yeah, I mean look at that. I mean, obviously that's aged and that's whatever, but this is the year. I mean, 99, 98, 2000 when this was made. Obviously it came out in 2000, so I think 98 to 2000 is a fair space of time to put it in. I mean, CGI wise, the computer I think it works for this film. Is it dated? Sure. When if you compare it to Marvel or Avengers Endgame, it's not even in the same. It's not even playing the same sport. Not even the same ballpark. But it works. I mean, they made this film for $93 million. It was, or no, it made $93 million. Shoot, whatever. It works. It's not expensive. It doesn't look lifelike anymore. But I remember seeing this I didn't see it when it came out. I cut this one on DVD. I think my dad had bought it or something. And I remember like that the scene where the monkey's coming back to life. You see the veins and the arteries and the muscles and the tendons and the bones forming. Oh God, that might be my favorite shot from the whole movie. It works. It looks cool. I mean, it's more than believable enough for what this movie is. And it gets the point across. And I wish I could have gone back and seen this in the theater because that on the big screen I think would look amazing. Kevin Bacon going back and forth from here to not here and everything else. It's a visual package that works for the time period that it came out of. Because I mean, it was just 3 more years before Lord of the Rings come out with their graphics. That when you look at the graphics, the CGI in that film, it looks better than what we have today. So it was an early time for this stuff, but yeah, I think it works for this movie. With when the rain's coming down on him and you can see the outline. And if you ever have time, go watch the making of this movie. How they have him all blacked out. I mean, he's black from head to toe, from makeup to clothing to do the effects. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it works.
Yeah, Brody, our friend from Canada, is kicking in the chat right now. He said he enjoyed Hollow Man, not as much as Stir of Echoes, but it was still good. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Stir of Echoes is a much better horror movie than this. Like I said, this movie didn't know what it wanted to be at several points, but yeah, I can see that. Stir of Echoes is a good movie. But for me, the special effects. I mean, again, the CGI stuff is really obvious now, but I remember watching this in theaters back in the day and thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, what the hell is this craziness that's going on? And it is pretty cool. I mean, one of the things that I kind of like about it, as I was watching it last night, is there's these translucent effects. Because I remember, because I was kind of watching this and I was thinking to myself, I remember old anatomy books and stuff when I was in like junior high and high school, where it had drawings that looked just like this, just like this picture of him right there. And I remember seeing in science classes, like you'd have like the torso, the plastic torso that you could take apart. You remember those things? And it looked a lot like that. So I was thinking to myself, it looks like you just kind of painted up a mannequin, but I was like, it's actually not a painted mannequin, it's CGI. It's early CGI. And it's good for the time. It's actually probably pretty great for the time, but it also does kind of work in the way that in what's happening to the body right there as it's being turned into something invisible. I think it was really cool the way that they kind of like the muscles would fade away. You can kind of see him on the side of his head and then his forehead, how the muscular stuff is in the movie, it starts to fade away and recede and pull back, almost like it's doing negative growth. You know what I mean? And the way the whole thing would disappear from the outside in, I thought was kind of an interesting effect. I think it holds up pretty well. I can't get mad at 23-year-old special effects because that was a long time ago. But at the same time, I look at them and I'm like, these actually fit the movie pretty well. You know what I mean? It's some pretty wild shit. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with the effects at all. Really good, and they're fun to watch. It was fun to watch that transition scene, both the one with the gorilla kind of coming back to life. And the one where he almost comes back to life, and where he's transitioning into the invisible person. Those special effect shots were actually very, very good. But I'll move on now to the slow descent into madness. I mean, Kevin Bacon is so good at being. We've seen him Footloose, all those other movies where he's the good guy, but he's always had kind of this look in his face to where all he has to do is change his brow ever so slightly, and he looks very mean. He looks like he could be the bad guy.
Very expressive.
Yeah, he is a very expressive person. I think it's interesting how, like I said earlier, we see him in the beginning of the film. He's very much on the verge of, maybe not on the verge of losing his shit, but he has certainly a personality that it seems like he's always one step away from full insanity, which is not unusual for people of a high intellect like that. I mean, he even said, like, they're talking about the movie, like, he doesn't sleep enough. He's like, Da Vinci never slept. And, anybody who's read, junior high school history knows about all the stuff Da Vinci did. So, but I don't know. It seems like his personality is already very, very extreme. And all it does is it takes this one thing to kind of set him off to really make things worse. I don't know. What did you think about his transition from like overworked, super genius doctor to what we would eventually get in the end, this murderous psychopath?
Well, I mean, like I said a minute ago, prior to him even becoming invisible, you could feel that he may not be a bad guy, but he definitely has a dark side to him. I mean, and to be fair, we all have a dark side to us. Some are further dark than others, but how he plays this role, like I said, it's very Dr. Frankenstein. And I think it's funny because he's both the doctor and the monster in this movie. But when he's sitting there at the table and he's convincing them to move on to phase 3, he just looks like, kind of like how Joker says, you're only one bad day away, and even as Kevin Bacon says later on in this film, it's much easier to do whatever you want when you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror. His conscience is gone. What little of it may have been there to begin with. I mean, he's a man that his moral compass is very, I say sketchy at best is, a fitting way to put it. And what is moral to him is relative to what he wants out of something. And, I mean, he's willing to put himself on the line to do this. And, his descent into madness, I don't think he had to fall very far because I think he was there. It just hadn't came to the front. I think all of that was in him already. It just came out. He was already, watching the neighbor from across the street. He was already trying to get back with the ex-girlfriend. He had his sexual perversions already. But now that, you can't see me, he's pulling a John Cena here. He can do whatever he wants, right? He's doing his thing. Now he's he calls himself a god. He can do whatever he wants, And it's kind of, I kind of compare this to Joker in a way, in the whole, journey to madness. Was he already crazy? Does he regret what he's doing? And Kevin Bacon was perfect for this role. Kevin Bacon is one of the best actors of the last 50 years, I would say. And how he pulls it off in this film, I think is great. And he does horrible things, but this is a movie worth seeing just for his performance alone. I would put out there. It's one of those kind of things.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Even a lot of the camera shots tried to show you things from his view, his physical view.
Right.
So you can kind of see from behind his eyes as he's doing some of these terrible things to put you in the position of the guy who's kind of lost his shit, who is obviously, he has been compromised by whatever he was being compromised by. It actually does point out in the movie when Josh Brolin gets bit in the hand earlier by the gorilla. It foreshadows a little bit that, she's been more aggressive lately, is what he says. So it kind of foreshadows that this particular substance, this whatever they give you to make you invisible, it never really says what it is, that this stuff actually has a psychological and neurological effect on you. So if you know how foreshadowing works in movies, and I've seen plenty of movies, so I've seen it lots of times, is that you already kind of are like, okay, I already know that this guy's going to lose his shit. And then you get introduced to the character. You see that he's already very narcissistic. You see that he's already kind of impressed with his own intelligence. And then you see the scene where they're talking to William Devane and the rest of the people at the Pentagon about, he straight up lies to him. He's like, no, we're not ready yet. We need some more time. And they're like, oh, well, whatever. And he's kind of taking it upon himself. And that's the moment where you really get to see that he thinks he knows better than everybody else. And that's the narcissistic, borderline psychotic kind of way too brave, way too sure of yourself kind of nature that he already has. Factor in that he's going to give himself a dose of whatever the hell this miracle drug is, and it's going to start doing things to him psychologically. I mean, you've seen in real life people who are very, very intelligent lose their shit. I mean, look at the Unabomber. That guy was Ivy League educated, super smart, was a professor. Whatever happened to him happened. I mean, there's lots of rumors. And then he, loses his shit and starts sending bombs to people. I mean, that's just one example of somebody who's really, really intelligent kind of losing their mind. It's something that has notably happened. So factor in everything, him already being kind of a weirdo to begin with, and then the side effects of this drug, you kind of expect it to go sideways, or a little bit at least. And of course, if it didn't, it wouldn't be a movie. But I really liked his descent into madness. I mean, it's really interesting to watch the good guy turn into a bad guy over the course of a movie. It's happened notably in a few films, but I mean, you really are kind of rooting for him because he is part of this team is trying to do something amazing, even though it's obviously for governmental purposes. They obviously want to make their super soldier serum. That's probably what this is all about. But
are you saying this is an MCU timeline that didn't get filled out?
I don't know. We could be seeing the Invisible Man in the MCU. It's not like
Kevin Bacon's an X-Man. Holy crap, he's an X-Man. How did I not realize?
Literally, he was an X-Man. but
there you go.
But I mean, so you are kind of rooting for him and his team to succeed at first, and then of course shit goes sideways. By the end of the movie, you're like, Jesus Christ, the fuck is wrong with this guy? I mean, he's killed a bunch of people. He's trying to kill Elisabeth Shue. He's doing all this bad stuff. He's going to blow up his lab, and who the hell knows what happens if this guy actually gets out of the lab and can't be seen and is let loose on the world. But it was interesting watching his descent into madness. I like how they foreshadowed little things like him watching The Neighbor, and then they really show him crossing the line by and then of course they really show him crossing the line in that scene at the neighbor's apartment. That's That's
Oh yeah.
It's a sensitive topic in movies. It's a sensitive topic.
Oh, no doubt.
Period. But that's the point. It's shocking because you went from kind of being on this guy's side, knowing that he's probably going to flip and become an asshole at some point in the movie. You went from kind of being on his side to like, oh, now I hate this fucking guy. Now this guy has done one of the unthinkable things, the unforgivable things, and now he is full-on bad guy. And it gets interesting because you see him like later on, he's talking to Greg Grunberg's character after he goes back into the lab. He's like, "Oh, what'd you do last night?" He goes, "Oh, nothing." It just that's the part where you're like, okay, he's hit evil villain status. I'm not on this guy's side anymore. I know where this is going. But yeah, that Descent into Madness, it was well acted by Kevin Bacon, not effectively well directed by Verhoeven. I got to admit, I think I might have done it differently. But then again, I mean, I don't want to hold 2023 standards up against a movie from 2020. You know what I mean? I say that a lot of times. You can't go that far back and expect to, and then look at it with your modern eyes. You have to kind of understand what the entertainment climate was at the time, and maybe this kind of thing was a little more acceptable. I don't think they'd have put that scene in there today. Not by a stretch of the imagination.
I'd be willing to bet that Paul Verhoeven, he kind of let Kevin Bacon he seems like he kind of riffed a little bit in a lot of these scenes and how he did it. And I mean, Kevin Bacon was a huge star by the year 2000. So he probably had enough clout to kind of, well, let me play around with it, let me give my spin or whatever. And I'd be willing I'm not going to say I don't like how he plays the journey, but it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, yes, you saw in the gorilla how aggressive it was, but it's, you still have to ask the question of, a gorilla's already has an animal killer instinct. So does it take the aggression that's already there and just times it times 50, or does it lower the conscience of, the person that takes this substance, this miracle drug, this whatever? And, as Kevin Bacon is going through this transformation, it's almost like I don't want to give the guy a pass, but think about it. His eyelids are now translucent. The man can't sleep. The man can't do any of that. I mean, how are you after a couple of days, after not sleeping and you're groggy? You get angry. You get, you're more inclined to lash out and argue, or you're not a pleasure to be around. So taking that and putting in this form of extreme examples of what this guy already has ideas of wanting to do with the neighbor or the ex-girlfriend, or reaching in the redhead's clothes, he plays it comical, he plays it almost kind of Joker-like. He's obviously having fun with what he's doing. But, it's just, he takes it in a way that it's not funny, but it's almost a comical way, I guess is a way I'll put it. But, it's I don't hate the choice that he made for this. I really don't.
Yeah, one of the cool shots about this movie that I really like is early on when you see the gorilla eat the rat.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was, as he like picks the rat up off the ground, and you can see the rat obviously in the grasp of something, and then you just see the gorilla go to town on it. I was like, good God, that's a pretty cool way to start the movie. That's a pretty good special effect shot.
That rat looks like it's in a Looney Tunes cartoon because he gets squeezed tight in the middle and is popping a little balloon out. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. It's, we get those shots. Another cool shot that I think it had to be an homage to Predator. But when they're viewing through that kind of heat vision lens, after Kevin Bacon has gone invisible, how he kills the dog in that cage. I love that shot. Just the way that it looks visually, I think is stunning. Obviously, it's horrible. He's killing the dog. I get it. But we're dealing with a guy who literally, cuts people's throats and beats people with crowbars and pipes. He's a bad guy. He is what he is. But the visual stuff in this movie like that is, from the rat to the, Josh Brolin getting bit on the hand. There's so many cool shots in this movie. you're in the underground doom or underground kind of layer kind of thing. Doom is all around you. It's I mean, could you imagine being locked up with an invisible gorilla? I'd keep a loaded shotgun on me, ready to blast at any point in time. Like, there's no way that's not going to happen.
Not just the invisible gorilla. There was like the invisible dog. There was invisible monkey.
Right. Yeah.
And if they already recognize that this gorilla is getting more aggressive, then you've also got a dog that is getting more aggressive, which is usually not a good time.
Yeah.
A monkey getting more aggressive. Monkeys, a lot of people don't realize, have killed humans pretty regularly. I mean, not here in the United States, maybe, but certainly in places like Africa and other countries where monkeys pretty much just run free in the streets. I mean, they take babies, for crying out loud. That's not a joke. That actually happens. I mean, but yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Like I said, not Verhoeven's best work, but whatever. Let me see. Let me ask you this question. You're a horror guy, first and foremost.
Yes, sir.
Is this 100%. A horror? Is this a horror film, or is it just an action flick with a lot of kills? I lean towards the latter. What do you think?
I think it's horror. I think this is old school Universal style horror done in a 2000s way. Go back and you watch the old Invisible Man, any of those Universal classics. They always started around a doctor or some kind of madman or whatever. This is a horror film. I mean, you've got a guy that's already on the brink of madness. Is there action in the film? Yes, but there's more horror than action. I mean, and the gore and the kills alone are pretty good in this movie. Like I said, I'm a Paul Verhoeven fan. He doesn't apologize for getting exploitation like in your face. The blood splatter, the kills. I mean, how I don't see how somebody could call this action. There's horror themes. There's obviously horror action. There's horror tones. This is a horror film on every level for me. I wouldn't say this is action in any shape, form, or fashion. I would go all the way horror for me.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't think it's that much of a horror film. I mean, with the exception of the mass blood that happens over the course of the third act, like I said, it starts out kind of as a psychological thriller kind of thing. I don't think psychological thrillers are horror. I mean, you and I have had this conversation before about the Silence of the Lambs. Much more of a psychological thriller than it is a horror film. But I just don't feel like it's got horror vibes. Not the ones that I'm used to getting from some of the movies we've talked about. Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, things like in that ilk.
Would you consider The Last House on the Left a horror film or a psychological thriller film?
I think it's probably more psychological thriller than horror, but we've talked about it before. There's different kinds of horror films. There's the straight up slashers, like you and me tend to have all the fun with. And then there's the stuff that is a bit more, they want to scare you more than they want to show you blood. Those are the psychological thrillers, and the comedy, horror, blah, 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 sci-fi horror, so on and so on, like Aliens. But to me, this feels much more like an action movie with a lot of death in it. I mean, because think about it. I mean, is The Expendables a horror movie?
No, of course not. That's action film.
There's more people that die in The Expendables that die in this movie. You see them getting shot. You see them getting hit with cars and boulders and however millions of ways that they kill people in the Expendables movies. But it's an action movie. It's really all about the situation more than it is just the blood and gore. And I really think that's what this movie is. It's about the situation more than the blood and gore. Would you consider Joker with Joaquin Phoenix a horror movie? I don't.
No. And it's also not a comic book movie either. But
I agree with that. But I mean, both these characters kind of have the same character trajectory, the same story arc, is that they start out kind of in one place and they end up at some point over the course of the film, over the course of the story, kind of, something happens to changes them. And then by the end of the movie, they are what they are. But I don't consider Joker a horror movie. I think this is probably, it's situational action. I can't think of a better way to say it, to be honest.
if I had to classify this film, I would place this as a slow burn horror film. Obviously, the beginning of the film, we're setting up he's working for the government, the scientific aspect, all of that. But it's building, building, building. And I've said I keep using this example, but it keeps ringing true. This is an Eli Roth style horror film, and in the beginning, in the first 30 to 45 minutes, you don't get as much horror action, but you can sense it. The horror themes are there. It's got the undertones, but once you get to that third act, it really sets off. And I mean, like I said, this is go back and watch The Invisible Man, the original one from Universal. This is that movie, but a 2000 made version. And if that's not horror, then I don't know what is. And it's just, could you call it psychological horror? Sure, but there's a healthy dose of slasher in this, especially in that third act. I mean, it's the action is there, but I think there's more horror than action. That's my biggest point.
I don't even know if I would give it the slasher connotation, though. It's like, because the way that somebody like Jason Voorhees would kill people is slasher-like.
Right.
He's just evil. He's just lost his mind and he's an opportunistic killer more than anything else. It's like, now would Jason Voorhees or somebody like him taking a crowbar and jab it through the Frank that did die?
I'm pretty sure he
probably would, but I mean, also I don't think Jason Voorhees would find himself in the situation at all. You know what I mean? So,
oh my God, if we can get in a invisible Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th, that's a movie I need to see. That would be gnarly.
You can already see him and you can't stop him. If you can't see him, Jesus Christ,
right?
What chance do you really have?
That's what I'm saying. That'd be great.
Yeah, to me, it's just an action movie where the guy loses his shit and kills a lot of people. It's billed as a horror movie. It's called a horror movie. It's labeled a horror movie. I just don't think it really fits that mold. At least not to me. Not the way that I know horror. I would call it, I don't know, any of the things that you could do to talk around horror, psychological thriller or something like that. Any terms that you could use to talk around without giving it a horror label, I would go with any of those. I don't know that I would build as a horror movie, though. I wouldn't. That's just me. I don't know. Go in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Do you think it's a horror movie? I personally don't think so. Text likes it as a horror movie. I can understand maybe calling it a sci-fi horror. You could kind of do it like that, but for the most part,
there's obviously a sci-fi element to it. I mean, he's taking a miracle drug that makes him invisible. That's the reason why you're watching this movie. And sci-fi horror with a psychological element, that's a big title to put on it. I don't know. To me, it's horror film. I think there's more horror than action today, but I don't know. That'd be my vote.
Yeah, I don't think it gets horrorful until the last act. I think it's all psychological. It's all character stuff until he actually snaps and loses his mind, and then kills the first person, and that's the only horror part of the entire movie.
Have you ever seen Cabin Fever by Eli Roth?
Forever ago, maybe.
Would you call that a horror film then? Because that's a very similar situation.
I don't remember ever watching it. You know what? I got to say, I think I've seen it, but I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Okay.
As much as I'd like to remember every movie I've ever seen. Right. There's a lot of there's only so much RAM up here. I can only hold so many movies in my head at once.
Once you've seen, it's like, the memory store stuff, but you remember it as you need it. It's not just on key command kind of things with me. It's like, no, I get you. It's all good.
Yeah, but it does lead to a kind of an interesting question. If you could be invisible for a day, what would you do? I was really hoping to ask all four of us. All four of us could answer this, but it's just me and you tonight. So, I mean, one day, 24 hours, what would you do?
Oh my God. I would spend at least a good hour or two just fucking with people. Be like knocking on walls and moving stuff and doing whatever. That would, like I said, a good hour. If I had 24 hours, at least 2 hours of it is going to be spent, playing practical jokes. Then the rest, I don't know. I mean, maybe rob a bank. I don't really know. I mean, you'd obviously have to worry about not leaving, clues behind or something, but something of the sort like that. Maybe like sneak into like if it was like football season, sneak into a Cowboy game for free or something. I think that'd be something I would probably end up doing and be like, I'm here for free, just some kind of childlike nonsense. But it's they maybe get revenge on some few people. That thought would definitely cross my mind. Be like, oh, I'm going to sneak over to Johnny's house and smash him in the head with a 2x4 for doing blah 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 to me. But then maybe I become Kevin Bacon, and then they have to murder me because I'm not the Hollow Man. But it is what it is. But I don't know that. Like now, are you talking like I'm turned invisible without any warning, or do I have prep time here? Like, which way are you going with this?
I don't know. I'm just saying, you got 24 hours. 24 hours.
I don't know. I guess, probably if I could get away with it, I'm robbing a bank, buddy. They'll get the money back one way or another. It's all good. That, and I'm going to go screw with people. But that's my plan. What I mean? So.
I don't know. I can't say I would do really any of the shit that Kevin Bacon does in this movie.
Oh God!
I mean,
yeah, no, I'm not.
The whole, driving the car and scaring the kids thing. That was actually one of the funniest scenes in the entire movie. I could totally see myself doing something like that. But I don't know that I would want to do anything that would attract that much attention to myself anyway. I mean, because you got to figure the family that saw him do that is probably going to call somebody and be like, "Hey, I saw this crazy shit." So now you've drawn attention to yourself, and that's never a good thing. But I would not do any of the shit that he did, especially the bad stuff to the neighbor and to the coworker and all that. That's
no, hell no.
I don't have the desire to do anything like that. Talk about sneaking into a sports game. Sure. Here's the part that would be difficult for me is that in order to get away with all this, he has to walk around naked. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable walking out of my house naked, even if I knew I was invisible. Even if you took a picture of me and showed it to me and said, "We cannot see you. You're fine to do whatever you want to do," I might still be like, I don't know if I want to leave my house. My body positivity is not there. I'm just going to say it like that. But
see, that's the thing. What time of year are you going to be invisible, man? Because if this is wintertime, buddy, you ain't going outside, especially where you live, where it gets colder than a witch's tit. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you're going to have to prepare for this kind of stuff. Like 24 hours invisible in Hawaii in the summer, that's a dream. But, 24 hours in, New York in wintertime, you're staying home. You got to plan this out.
Yeah, I guess for the sake of argument, we'll just say wherever you are, it's going to be a comfortable time of year. It's not going to be terrible.
Right. Yeah, just put this in the best scenario possible. It's like July, summer, so everywhere is happy. It's all good. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to think I'd do some, like I said, sneak into a football game, go to a mall and mess with some people, do whatever, drive your car invisible, be like, instead of just driving with the mask on and take the glasses off, just drive invisible and freak everybody out on the highway. Be like, is this a self-driving car or whatever? Blah, 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 do stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Would you feel comfortable sitting at AT&T Stadium in the middle of, 50,000 people, I think, is what the capacity is of that stadium, watching a football game butthole naked?
Oh, it's more than that.
I mean, whatever it is, a full AT&T.
I would do it
at a Cowboys game.
I would wait till the 49ers came into town, and then I would sit next to a 49er fan, and I would just rip farts the whole game, just so I ruined their entire time there. Just ripping ass the whole time.
It wouldn't bother them. They shit on the sidewalks in San Francisco. They're probably by now. But I don't know. For me, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's skinny dipping in someone's pool. I think would be fun if they don't know what the hell. They look out their window and see some splashing, but don't know what the hell's going on in their pool. That might be fun. I don't know. Just leaving the house naked, even if I knew I was 100% invisible, would be a little bit beyond comfort for me. But if you took away all my inhibitions, yeah, fucking with people would be fun. I mean, spinning pictures around the wall, making it look like a real haunted house or some shit like that would be kind of fun.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Randomly starting people's like lawnmowers and shit, and they're like, "What the hell's going on over here?"
You can, well, see, okay, obviously you're going to have to eat within this 24-hour period, and everything that is of his own being is invisible. So if you're eating a hot dog at this football game, right? Are you going to watch the hot dog go down? And at what point does it become invisible? When you crap it out? There's some physics questions here that I need answers to, because that might be interesting to watch.
There is that scene in the movie where he's getting sick to his stomach and he vomits, and the vomit is invisible. So,
right, but that's of his own DNA, though. If you're eating a hamburger that's separate from you, and you're eating it, are you going to watch it go through the digestive tract and into the stomach and through the acid, and whatever? That's something that would be interesting to see, because if that's the case, you're giving a live science demonstration every time you take a drink of whiskey or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things.
I don't know. There's lots of angles we can approach this from, but I wouldn't even know where to begin, to be perfectly honest. But let's see real quick. I go to the chat real quick. See, Anani says, Hollow Man? Never heard of the film. You wouldn't be the only one. It's not Elisabeth Shue or Kevin Bacon's biggest film by any means. It was just something that came out in the early 2000s.
Even that title is not correct, because he's not hollow. He's still solid. You can still feel him. You just can't see the guy. That's one thing about this film I've always thought was kind of ironic how they play it off. You know what I mean?
It is kind of a weird title. It's based on the story Invisible Man, which they've made films about a long time, for a long time. So why not just call it The Invisible Man? Because I haven't read the Invisible Man book. I remember seeing the original movie from the early 50s, like 100 years ago. But so I don't know exactly how he comes about being invisible then. I think it's roughly the same thing. He mixes some chemicals together and then makes himself invisible.
Yeah, something like that.
But I suppose it's to try to differentiate from the other Invisible Man properties, because there's been a few movies over the years. Universal's done them. So maybe calling it Hollow Man instead of The Invisible Man kind of just makes it a bit different. Maybe you're going to see the movie a bit differently. I don't know.
Well, that's the whole thing is, like I said, this came out, horror died in the 90s. It was after the boom of, actually, technically, horror died in the late 80s. Like 88 to 89 is when it really started to die off. Because you had Jason and Freddy killing it. Movies every year, just boom, all kinds of B movies left and right. And it really hit a wall in the 90s. And then, obviously, Scream, reinvigorated the horror franchise a lot. And you got Halloween came back and everything else. Then the 2000s happened, and you had a new re-emergence of horror films. You had movies like this. You had, they brought back Dark Castle. I think it's Dark Castle Entertainment is the studio that they created, and they brought back like all the old Vincent Price type ghost stories, 13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill, all of those kinds of movies. Then you had this come out, and then that led back into the re-emergence of the slashers from Chainsaw, Halloween, whatever. And this movie, it kind of came and went. It wasn't a big critical hit, but most people hate horror films anyway. But this is one of the more underappreciated films of the early 2000s, and I would really love to delve into more of the 2000s era horror, because there's a lot of good ones in here. A lot of them are remakes, but that just because a remake doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes they're actually better. And Hollow Man it's a disturbing film to watch, especially for women. I will put that warning out there, because Verhoeven does not hold back whenever he does what he does in this film, but it's a solid movie. Like I said, it may be my favorite Verhoeven film, and that's saying something when you've got Starship Troopers and RoboCop. But I really dig this movie. It's not an easy watch, but it's a good watch.
Yeah, Nani, this is actually free to watch on Tubi with a couple of ads. So if you want to give it a chance, it's a couple hours of your life you won't get back if you don't like it. But I mean, there's worse movies out there. Not a whole lot worse.
Right.
But I mean, it's like I said, it's not Kevin Bacon's magnum opus or anything. But it's something.
It's worth, if you're a Kevin Bacon fan, it's one you need to see.
Yeah. Let's move on to a little bit of trivia now. What is my first piece of trivia today? Did you know that 6 weeks into filming, Elisabeth Shue tore her Achilles tendon, which shut down production on June 25th for over 7 weeks? At one point, producers considered replacing her. However, shooting resumed on August 18th, 1999 and ran until February 4th of 2000 following her recovery.
Oh, lucky for her. Normally, when they make movies like this, I mean, they just replace the girl actors because, normally they're just cannon fodder. But considering she was kind of I don't know, would you consider her a final girl in the vein of like Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott?
No. I mean, it's hard for me to consider her a final girl because I don't necessarily consider this a full-on horror movie.
Right. Oh, okay. I get that.
I can understand where you'd make the argument. But calling her the final girl also might not work because her boyfriend gets away too. If Josh Brolin would have died, I might have been like, I'll give her final girl credit. But.
Well, I could give you a pretty good sized list of true slasher films where the boyfriend survives too, but I don't think she's pure final girl, but I think she's at least adjacent to it. Just especially for that ending scene in the elevator shaft. I think it qualifies. Not all the way, but halfway at least. I don't know.
That was a pretty cool ending to watching him falling down the elevator shaft. That was very very Nakatomi Plaza. Well, that is usually a really good shot at the end of any action movie when the bad guy's falling slowly down to his imminent death. So yeah, that's a good one. That's not a bad way of doing things.
I will say the one thing about that scene, I wish they had differentiated the color palette of the elevator shaft and him, because he kind of blends a little bit in with that. I wish they make him more red or the walls more silver or something. But he kind of he fits in too well with that for me in that one shot.
I think it's kind of a realistic tone. I mean, those reds and the blood and veins and stuff like that are all going to be red. You've got a dark cement, elevator shaft. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Maybe it's because we're watching a 23-year-old film and maybe they haven't color corrected some things. It's not exactly been pushed up to 4K, that kind of thing. So,
I would buy a 4K version of this movie. Like I like this movie enough that I would buy a physical copy of it for that, update. But yeah.
See, Nani in the chat saying it's good to know he tested positive for the Rona after returning from Kansas, and he feels miserable. He says, I need to watch a good horror flick to take my mind off my symptoms. Hey, man, I'm feeling for you, Nani. I went through the Rona a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, actually. I got through it pretty well. My girlfriend got beat up by it a little bit. She actually ended up in the hospital for about a week. But yeah, so it cruised through my house as well. As a matter of fact, the only person in my family, in my immediate family, me, my girl, and the kids that didn't get it was my stepdaughter. And I'm pretty sure she had it at one point. She was just asymptomatic. So, but we never actually got anybody tested.
I never got it. I mean, I never got the pokey poke, and I never got the actual vid itself. So
I never got the poke, and I'm happy I didn't get the poke. I mean, knowing what we know now, but I mean, I got it. Honestly, I was just taking a lot of vitamin D, man. So all I say is you can go to Walmart. They have the vitamin D grape chewables. I keep a thing of those in my medicine cabinet. I pop one of those a day. It's the recommended daily allowance, and I take a multivitamin, so I'm actually getting twice the recommended daily allowance. That was all I did. No monoclonal antibodies, no ivermectin, nothing. I was over it in 4 days. The worst part was the cough. I had a really persistent cough for about 2 days, which was really annoying, and my appetite completely hit the floor. I could not eat more than like half a bologna sandwich for like 2 days, like all day long.
I still say it was just the flu, but I don't want to get too Alex Jonesy on this Hollow Man podcast. So.
I'm not gonna lie. Here's my squirrel moment brought to you by Frank and not Corey.
Holy crap, Frank's having a squirrel moment. Everybody remember
I'm gonna have my own squirrel moment for a minute. I've no shit have had the flu way worse. I've had the flu put me in bed for 2-3 days before. Like with COVID, really? I was just really tired. The cough sucked. I'm not gonna lie, the cough sucked. Destroyed my appetite. I would eat, like I said, I'd make a bologna sandwich, I'd eat half of it, and then I was just done. And I would sleep all the time. Like I slept probably out of 2 days, I probably slept all but 8 hours. It's like I'd get up I'd go to bed at 11 or 12, wake up at 9 or 10, go lay down on the couch, watch a little TV, and then fall asleep again for 2 hours. And then I would get up, try to eat something, lay back on the couch, fall asleep for 2 or 3 more hours. I just slept a lot. But vitamin D, man, just load up on the vitamin D and stuff. It sounds like he's doing that. He said vitamin C, good, vitamin D, good, and zinc. Zinc is actually important too because your body does not absorb all of the vitamin D that you try to take in supplements. Zinc actually helps you absorb more of the vitamin D. Not to mention zinc is actually good for you.
Hopefully you feel better now.
Today. Yeah, he said he's eating half a banana today. Well, all I can say, man, is you'll get through it, man. You'll get through it. Hopefully, you don't have any comorbidities. And I'm a fat guy, and I made it through it pretty well. So, I mean, but hope you're feeling good, man. Yeah, hit Tubi. There's plenty of stuff on Tubi. I'm actually going to go tomorrow. I'm hoping to sit down and watch both the Terrifiers. I think both of them are going to be on there until the end of tomorrow. So tomorrow, when I get home, I'm going to try to burn through both the Terrifier movies because I haven't watched them yet. But
you're going to have fun watching those back to back because they both link together.
Yeah, Nani said he slept from 8 p.m. last night to 8:30 a.m. this morning. He's still tired. Oh, yeah. You know what really got me was the COVID fog. I had that for a solid week and a half after I got better. I mean, the 3 or 4 days was really run down, sleeping a lot, didn't want to eat. And then I felt better, so I got up and did some yard work. And this is when they were still telling you to take 2 weeks or a week or whatever to quarantine or whatever. So after a couple of days, I felt better, and so I was back out in my yard doing yard work and stuff. I still had the fog. That really sucked. That lasted for about a week or two after I got better. Even when I went back to work, I still had that kind of like real weird, like everything looked far away. It was really, really odd. Shaking that was the best part of getting rid of COVID because that was really annoying. That was the part that just didn't go away. But thinking of you, Nani, you'll get better soon, man. Just keep taking care of yourself. Try to eat, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Hit up Tubi and go to that horror section because there is so many. I mean, I don't know what specific kind of horror you're into, but just comb through their catalog. You're going to find a lot of stuff you've never seen before, and that's a good thing. Just go dig through the B movies, and you'll find something you like. So,
if you're into documentaries, they have a couple of good documentaries on there too that I've watched. But also the great documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards. Great documentary about the Monster Squad movie.
Yes, Monster Squad.
We may have to do that movie here shortly because I actually after I watched that documentary, I was like, oh damn, I didn't know a lot of the stuff. I just didn't know. But the resurgence of that movie has been something really exciting to see. But moving on with some of the trivia. Let's see. Hollow Man was one of the very few films allowed to shoot directly in front of the Pentagon building, with Verhoeven expressing surprise that the script was even approved by the government because the themes of the United States government commissioning scientific experiments into making living beings invisible. I understand, but it's like, if I'm the government, the film office at the Pentagon, and this guy sends me the script, I'm like, let him go ahead and make this. We're not doing any bullshit like this. Let him have his little scientific, whatever wet dream. That's not anything we're actually doing. I mean, I am actually really surprised, though, that they did let him shoot in front of the Pentagon, because generally speaking, even if it's a movie that the military is all about, like a Top Gun or something like that, they generally don't want a whole lot of cameras around that building. You know what I mean? Pre 9/11, of course. Pre 9/11. But even then, that's not really
I've been to the Pentagon once, and this was in 2005, so it was already after 9/11, and security protocols were out the butt. You couldn't go anywhere without basically getting cavity searched and everything else. But think about it, conspiracy wise, and I'm a conspiracy nut, so I can talk about this. All of the people that are on the U.S. government's got aliens in Area 51, and they're doing super soldier serums and blah, 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 blah. give them a conspiracy that the government is, fake doing, right? And it just keeps them entertained for a while. The hardcore guys that spend all day online digging up, conspiracies and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, they obviously got clearance. So this was, right before, just a couple years before 9/11. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, some interesting casting possibilities. What could have been? Let me find a good picture for this. Let's see. Guy Pearce and Edward Norton were also considered for the role of Sebastian before Kevin Bacon was chosen.
Really?
Bacon was chosen in part, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, for his ability to be both charming and diabolical at the same time.
Oh yeah. Now, Edward Norton, he's not a bad actor. I mean, he was great in Fight Club, and I even liked his Incredible Hulk movie that he did. Technically the first MCU movie. But I was actually very upset whenever he was replaced with Mark Ruffalo or whatever his face is. But no, Kevin Bacon fits this. Kevin Bacon. I mean, for a lot of years, Kevin Bacon has been fan cast as everybody from Freddy Krueger to all other kinds of horror roles, and he's got that face where he can pull. Like, look at that right there. That's just nightmare fuel. Like, are you a burn victim? What's going on here? You have no lips. No, this is Kevin Bacon's baby right here, and I think he does extremely well with it. I wouldn't have won. Guy Pearce, I can't think of anything I've ever seen with Guy Pearce. I know him, but I can't recall any of his films. I'm not sure. So yeah, no, I think they went right with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Edward Norton, I don't know. He's always been so weird to work with from what I've read. I mean, I know that as his career went on, I know one of the things that he wants when he's on a movie is he wants like say in the editing and all that. And I'm like, nah, it's not really what you do, bro. Right. If you really want to say in the editing, you need to make your own, pay for it, make your own damn movie. You can edit it however the hell you want. But I know. Now again, this was 23 years ago, so I don't know if that was necessarily the case, back then. But yeah, I don't know. Guy Pearce, I don't know. He was in the Time Machine remake that came out in the early 2000s, I think.
Oh, I'm not sure if I saw that.
It wasn't a terrible movie. I'll pull up some movies that he's been in that I know of.
I remember seeing the original Time Machine, but I don't think I saw the remake of it.
He was in L.A. Confidential. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not. That's actually a pretty good movie. Memento, The Time Machine in 2002 was when that came out. It was a remake of the 1960 film. Let's see. The Road, The Hurt Locker, the historical drama, The King's Speech. I forget who he was. He played the brother in The King's Speech. He was in Prometheus. He was in Iron Man 3. He played the guy that created the Extremis armor. I don't know if you saw Iron Man 3 or not.
Oh, okay. That was okay, yeah. And I saw him in Prometheus as well. He was I think he was the guy that he gets possessed by the black goo. Is he the one that they set on fire? I can't remember.
In what movie?
I think he was. In Prometheus, that prequel to Alien.
Yeah, I don't remember what he was in there, but
I can't remember. But I do remember him in that movie now. Okay, and I saw Iron Man 3. I didn't like Iron Man 3. I thought that was my least favorite of all the Iron Man films.
Yeah, but, me too.
Yeah, I do remember it. It was just boring. It was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, Guy Pearce could have been interesting. I don't know about Edward Norton. But it could have been. Also,
I wouldn't have took either of them over Kevin Bacon though. Kevin Bacon, his charisma, like you have to have big charisma to play such a bad character to make you still want to see this person. And Kevin Bacon has that charisma. That's one thing that carries him, especially in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but let's see. Next piece of trivia is. During filming, Kevin Bacon wore skin-tight costumes in green, blue, gray, or black to assist with the adding of visual effects. Some of his castmates said that the hardest part of their role was not laughing at someone painted black, green, blue, or gray pretending to be mean. Well,
yeah.
And, you know, again, green screen was still kind of in its infancy at that point. Some of the special effects were just kind of coming to their own. So seeing someone dressed in a tight green suit now on a movie set, especially for a big budget kind of thing. I mean, because nowadays $90-something million equates to probably about 120 somewhere. I mean, I don't know what the inflation and all that, but I mean, so yeah, if you're spending that much money on a movie now, I mean, you expect to see some CGI people, some green suits. It's become kind of the norm, whereas back in the year 2000, that probably wasn't the norm. At least not quite yet. But yeah.
Go watch the making of this though if y'all haven't seen it, because there's one shot where he's wearing like the skin tight black suit. He's got his head and his face all painted black. He's got little dots all over him. It looks so comical and stupid. I would have laughed at him too. It's very funny to see. It's worth looking at.
And it's a testament to how good the actors can sometimes be at just doing what they do. I mean, how many times have you tried to say something straight faced just as a joke to a friend, and you just can't get it out without kind of losing it and kind of breaking character? It's like, I mean, yeah, you can do it over multiple takes, and eventually you kind of get your shit together. But I mean, it is very difficult. I mean, hell, even in the Avengers stuff when Josh Brolin was playing Thanos, it's like he was on set, but he had that big thing off a vest or something coming up here with where Thanos' head would be, so that they would know to look up and talk to Thanos rather than just look straight and talk to Josh Brolin. I mean, that in and of itself would have been kind of a weird thing to see, but you know, whatever. Well, I suppose after you've done enough big budget movies, you get used to it.
At this point, like for the 2003 Dawn of the Dead that Zack Snyder did, when they go back and they watch the shot where they're standing on the roof of the mall and they see a helicopter flying over, they have like a broom painted green, and they have like a tennis ball or something on the end of it. And you see this guy just running along the roof, and all of them are staring at that tennis ball on top of the broom handle or whatever as it's flying over, because they're going to digitally insert the helicopter later. It's funny to see how they did this back in the day, but you know, it's 2000. What do you expect from visual effects? They were just figuring it out.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's see. To get the right reaction from the cast, Paul Verhoeven had speakers put in different places in the set and had Kevin Bacon's voice come from different speakers so that the cast would genuinely react to the invisible character moving around. That's good directing right there. Oh, wow. That's setting the mood, setting the scene, giving your actors something to act off of. That's something good directors do, is you give your actors an easy opportunity, an easy avenue to react, not just act. You know what I mean? Like I said, some actors can do that. Some actors, you can say, pretend you're hearing this voice in different places. You're like, what? And some actors can do that. Some people, and I think it's probably human nature, I don't think it says anything about the actor's ability to do their job. Some people don't really have that ability to do that. So, I don't know. Whatever. It is interesting.
When, you know, our natural tendency when somebody's talking to us is to look them in the face. You know, I mean, you know, we're all taught that as we're young, as a sign of respect or whatever. You know, you look somebody in the eye when you're talking to them. But you know, for somebody who's been disembodied like Kevin Bacon has in this film, you know, you really can't do that. So it obviously wasn't a Bluetooth speaker, but you know, hey, however they did it, it worked.
I don't think they had Bluetooth back then. I think we're still a couple
years away. Bluetooth. Yeah, I think they're about 5 years away from that, but you know, who knows what they had.
Let's see. Director Paul Verhoeven and director of photography Josh Vacano had to be informed on set as to what Sebastian's Marco Polo taunt meant. As Verhoeven is from the Netherlands and Vacano from Germany, neither had ever heard of the game of Marco Polo.
Really?
Marco what? Why you keep saying Marco Polo? Well, I mean, maybe it's just not because look, Marco Polo, maybe it's an American thing. I don't know. I mean, we've all played Marco Polo in the swimming pool when we were kids, but they had no idea what that. Yeah, they had no idea what that game was. They had never heard of it. They didn't know what the reference was, so they had to have it explained to them, which I thought was kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see, he's he was. Let's see, he did RoboCop in 80. Was it 84 or was it 80?
What was that?
What year did he do RoboCop? Was that 84 or 80?
87.
Or was it 87? Okay, and that was like his big. Was that his big first film that he did here?
I
can't
don't
remember
know if it
now.
was his first. It may have been the second. No.
Well, either way, he spent less than 20 years over here. So I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of customs and things that we have that he didn't pick up on. You know, I mean, and plus he was already a grown man by the time he got here, so he wasn't playing our kid games. You know what I mean? So it's understandable, but hey, you know, whatever works.
Let's see, another piece of trivia. When the crew carries the half-invisible Sebastian back to the operating table, a metal skeleton was used. It was made of metal in order to make it heavy, so the actors would give the impression of actually carrying a human body.
Really? Now, maybe they painted it green, or maybe they painted it green or black so they could CGI it out. You think?
I don't know. Just said it was a metal skeleton.
Oh. Well, I mean, there is that one shot whenever they're in that scene, and you know he goes back invisible, and you see the impressions on the mattress where his body was. So that's probably where they had that skeleton right there at. But that's it. That's kind of cool.
You really could have just cut out that part of the mattress and put a sheet on it. I mean, that's not a hard one to do in my eyes. But
yeah, no. Yeah. There's definitely practical ways you could get around that for sure.
Let's see, another piece of trivia. You know, there was actually a book called The Hollow Man. And in order to use this title, producers had to buy the rights to the Dan Simmons novel, The Hollow Man, though the novel has nothing to do with this movie or The Invisible Man.
I didn't think you could copyright a title. I thought anybody could use a title.
Okay.
That's what I was.
The book's got an interesting premise. I actually read a little bit about the book. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Because I mean, obviously, if they were copywriting an idea, you would have to pay for that. But I was pretty sure that a title is not something you can own. I mean, hell, I thought I could make a movie called Halloween because many other people have done it, and it wasn't Michael Myers. You know what I
mean? Let me get a little bit of background of the book. I actually read about it. It actually has something to do. Let me pull up Wikipedia real quick. It was actually The Hollow Man is a novel by American author. Let me get this picture down here real quick. Okay. Novel by American author Dan Simmons. The book was initially published by Bantam Books on September 1st, 1992. It narrates the story of a university lecturer who has the ability to hear the thoughts of others, an ability he shares with his dying wife. So it's probably more of a romantic sci-fi thing, maybe?
Yeah.
Very different. There are numerous themes in the novel which are expanded in later works, most notably a set of theories on the nature of and perception of reality. Conversely, at least one character, Vanni Fucci, appears in Simmons' earlier 1988 work. Vanni Fucci is alive and well in hell. The Hollow Man was nominated for a Locust Award in 1993. The novel itself is an expansion of an earlier short story called Eyes I Dare Not Meet in Dreams that appeared in his 1990 collection, Prayers to Broken Stones. Original ideas and characters behind much of Simmons' subsequent works can be found in this collection. The plot summary of the book is, after the death of his wife, Gail, Jeremy Bremen leaves his previous life behind, burning his home and possessions and embarking on a journey to find peace from the neurobabble of humanity. Without his wife's presence, Bremen cannot shield himself from the unwanted ability to read minds and hear thoughts. He searches for solitude and isolation from people, which he initially finds. However, as the novel progresses, he's exposed to increasing levels of contact with humanity and horrifying experience of malicious and violent behavior. This actually sounds like it might make an interesting movie on its own. Transposed with Bremen's story is that of another character, Robbie, who appears to be narrating and commenting upon Bremen and his wife's life. Robbie is severely disabled and unable to communicate as he is deaf, mute, and blind. Wow. He is also able to have such familiarity with Bremen. How he is able to have such familiarity with Bremen is not disclosed until towards the end of the novel. So I don't know. It's interesting enough premise, but yeah, it had absolutely nothing to do with this movie. So, hey, the Hollow Man.
I didn't think you could copyright a title of something though. I didn't think that was legal.
I don't. The legalities, I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the laws have changed over the years. This was 23 years ago, so maybe the laws have changed.
Right.
Maybe it wasn't that he wanted them to pay him. Maybe they were just like, the legal department was like, well, there's this book out there called The Hollow Man. How about we give this guy $10,000 to make sure he's not going to be a problem? Because $10,000 is not a lot of money for the studios. So.
No, I mean, if you're spending millions on a movie, $10,000, they spend more than $10,000 on lunch. I mean, that's nothing. So, yeah, I mean, that's, that could have been just hush money or whatever. But hey, like I said, I may have went with a different title than Hollow Man because he's technically not hollow, but that's just me being a nerd about it. It's not that big of a deal. So
yeah. Let's see. Isabel, the gorilla, was played in part by a man in a gorilla suit. Crew members had to stand by and warm the suit with hair dryers in order for the thermal camera to accurately emulate an actual gorilla's body heat. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have been in a gorilla suit being heated up by hair dryers just so you could get a shot for a movie. That guy must have been dehydrated as shit by the time this movie was over.
I love movies. I love watching movies, but I might like the making of movies just as much as the actual product, especially for, big budget things that have, a big production behind it. It's something I always enjoy. That's why I love the director's commentary watching a film. You don't get it as much these days, which is unfortunate, but in the DVD era, I would watch a movie 4 or 5 times with the commentary on to just get the insight and the how-tos and the funny stories. Quentin Tarantino and Rob Zombie have the best commentaries because it's basically a 2-hour film school while you're sitting there watching a movie. If you ever want to know how they do this stuff, just go put the commentaries on. You'll learn everything that you'll ever need to know. But, I'd love to have been there to see the gorilla thing, though.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really, really liked about DVDs. It's not just the making of, but it's like the deleted scenes, the other small featurette. How did they do this really big scene in the movie? How did they do this? I mean, as someone who, for most of all of my adult life and really part of my childhood was interested just in the process of making a film, that kind of stuff was always really, really interesting to me. And especially once the commentaries became a thing on DVDs, it was interesting to hear any director talk about, what was my thought process behind this scene, how, funny story about this scene. And even the cast commentaries are really funny. Like every day, while they're watching the movie, they'll tell this funny story about how somebody had to pee really bad during the scene, and that's why they look so urgent. It's little things like that you don't hear those stories. You used to not hear these stories very often up until the advent of DVDs and some of the digital stuff where you can actually get it. And I really like the fact that Amazon now and slowly more of the streaming service, I know Disney Plus will do it as well, but they're actually putting special features out now. It's like you can go on Amazon and you can buy, like, say, I don't know, Blue Beetle, just for example. When Blue Beetle comes out, you can pay for just the movie, or you can pay like an extra $3 and you get the movie with all the features, the making of, deleted scenes, stuff like that. So I'm really glad that there are some of the streamers that are trying to hold on to that, because it really is good for the industry, I think, to let people kind of peek behind the curtain after they've seen the movie and say and take a look at how this movie was filmed, how the scene was done, how did the act, the interaction between the actors that wasn't on camera, that kind of thing. So yeah, I really like that kind of stuff. But let's see. The role of Matthew, played by Josh Brolin. Do you know who almost played that role? Mr. Robert Downey Jr. Downey Jr. Iron Man himself was considered for the role of Matthew Kensington.
Really?
Yes.
So Thanos took Iron Man's role, huh?
That is the well, I mean, he was considered for the role. It doesn't say he was offered the role or he was going to do it. He said he was considered for the role.
Was Robert Downey past his legal issues at this point in 2000?
You know what? Let me go look real quick to make sure. I don't know why I put that picture up there, but
because see, Iron Man came out in what, 2007?
2007 or 2008.
Yeah.
Let me because there was the filmography real quick, because I think it was right around this time that he was doing Chaplin, which was another one of those movies that really Chaplin's really good. Let's see.
I'm assuming it's about Charlie Chaplin, right?
Yes, it was a biopic of Charlie Chaplin. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
He had joined the cast of Ally McBeal. I remember he was on Ally McBeal for a while. He was had kind of a reoccurring role in Ally McBeal, and he got a lot of love for that as well. Let's see. See, he did Hamlet in Los Angeles on stage, directed by Mel Gibson. Let me just go to his filmography real quick. And of course, it's going to be a whole different thing.
Because I want to say that he was
in 2000. He did Wonder Boys, which I remember the movie, but I don't think I ever saw it.
I never saw that either.
The Singing Detective in 2003. So he had done Bowfinger in 1999. He had done U.S. Marshals in 98. Let's see. And this was after he was coming out of his younger stuff. He did Natural Born Killers, obviously.
I'd love to review that one too. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's some kind of movie. Let's see.
Yeah.
And then so in 99 he did U.S. Marshals in 98. He did a movie called In Dreams, which I don't know anything about that movie. Friends and Lovers. He did a movie. I don't know anything about that either. He did Bowfinger, that comedy with was directed by Frank Oz with Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. He did a movie called Black and White, which I never saw. He did Wonder Boys, which I know I'd heard of, I never saw. He did a couple of short films in the early 2000s. So this would have been right about the time he was on the verge of his comeback, and then he did.
So this was like in that time period. So I'm assuming his legal issues. I want to say that was like mid 90s or mid to late 90s is when he was over that. I want to say. Well, he was kind of like working his way up through all the small films.
Yeah, I feel like he was coming out of it at that point. I mean, because obviously, if you want to go back, well, hell, he was in a movie in 1970 that I'd never heard of. The first thing that I could think of that he was in was Girls Just Want to Have Fun in 85. That's the first thing I can remember seeing. Up the Academy. What's this? No, I was never heard of it.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically he got Iron Man because he was. I mean, cause I know Tom Cruise was offered it first, but he turned it down, and then it went to Robert Downey Jr. Right?
I don't know that he turned it down. I think maybe Kevin Feige, my guess is that Kevin Feige didn't want to give in to a lot of the Scientology stuff, because I know that when Tom Cruise does the movie, he doesn't want anybody around him that's not a Scientologist. So I would imagine that, because remember when Iron Man came out, the best they thought they were going to do was they would get to the Avengers and that'd be it. Sure, they had plans, but if Iron Man would have come out and failed, I mean, there wouldn't have been an MCU past the Avengers. It would have gotten gotten to that point that would have been done. But so I don't think they wanted to put that kind of money into Tom, because look, at that point, Tom Cruise has already been one of the biggest actors of the last 20 years. I mean, going all the way back to his stuff in the mid 80s, Top Gun, Days of Thunder. So putting that kind of money into letting Scientology run his production probably wasn't what he wanted to do. But or maybe they just liked Robert Downey Jr. better, and they were like, well, we'll get him because he's cheap, he needs to come back, and he kind of fits the role, and of course he absolutely did. But he did
Iron Man
1986, great movie.
Iron Man was made before it was sold to Disney, correct?
Yes, I think everything up to everything in Phase 1 was done by Marvel Studios. I think it was after Phase 1 that Disney bought it. and everything else was released into Disney.
Oh,
that's what I think.
okay.
But but then he did. So he did U.S. Marshals, Bowfinger into the 2000s. Let's see. Then he did Gothica, which is a movie I didn't even know he was in that movie. To be honest, I think I only ever saw it once.
He's briefly in that. That's more Halle Berry than anything.
He did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a pretty good movie. Let's see. He was in Good Night and Good Luck, which is a really good movie. If you haven't seen that, you should. It's a pretty good movie. And what really set him off was Zodiac when he played the writer Paul Avery. Zodiac's a great movie.
Zodiac. If you've got an afternoon, take it and watch that movie. That's a really, really good true crime kind of deal. I like that one.
Yeah, but and then on and on through Avengers and so on and so on and so on.
But even if Robert Downey Jr. had gotten this movie, I don't imagine he would have been in any bigger of a part than what Josh Brolin was. I mean, he wasn't Robert Downey Jr. like we know him now. He wasn't that big of a superstar, so he still would have just been the good guy, that helped save the day. I mean, he wouldn't have been any bigger, I
don't think. Maybe. I don't know. But let's move on to the other stuff. Let's see. The software used to track Dr. Sebastian Caine uses the Omni Consumer Products logo from RoboCop, another film directed by Paul Verhoeven. When I read this, I was like, I really need to go back and check that because I didn't catch it.
I didn't even notice that. I'd have to go back and look at that.
I mean, visually, it looks a lot like the tech that they use to track RoboCop in Detroit, so it makes a little bit of sense.
Oh.
But I wanted to go back on that one too.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he made both movies, so why not, right?
But a car guy, we've talked about this before. Sebastian's car was a 1990 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabrio 996.
Yeah.
Never been a Porsche guy, to be perfectly honest. I mean, if somebody came and gave me a Porsche, I'd be like, okay, thanks. I'll drive the Porsche around. But I've never been a Porsche guy. You know what I mean?
I'm 6'5". I don't fit in a Porsche. They're not made for me. The geometry doesn't work here. I look like one of those guys in a clown car. I have to sit in the back seat to drive it, kind of thing. It's not for me. I drove one time whenever I was driving the wrecker, and I had to move it to where I could get it up on the back of the truck, and I had the seat all the way back, reclined all the way back because it wasn't a convertible top, and my knees were basically in my throat. It was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in a vehicle. It was horrible.
Yeah,
I'm not a Porsche guy.
I mean, I think I've actually hit that point in life where I've started shrinking. So I'm probably like 5'11" now, but at one point I think at my tallest I was like 6 foot, right about when I was in my early 20s. And I've driven some smaller cars of like girls I've dated and stuff who like the tiny cars, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, how do you do this? I don't get it. But
very few cars I fit in, but no, I've owned trucks or SUVs all my life. I had one car. I had a Pontiac Grand Am, and it was surprisingly roomy, but it was back whenever I was rodeoing, and I needed something good on gas mileage. But yeah, I'm a truck guy. It is what it is.
Well, usually I ask you guys the body count for a movie like this, but I'm going to ask you, Tex, how many times was the F word? How many times was the F word used in this movie?
Oh, the F word! Oh my God! Oh, seriously, to say, I was actually prepared for deaths in this movie, which I think the number is 6. But if you count the animals, I think it's 10. I think is the number. I actually counted when I watched this one. But F-bombs? Oh, God, who knows? 100. I'll just guess 100. I don't know. There was a lot.
You're guessing 100. You're a little high. But this is still kind of a high number.
Really?
The film uses the F word 45 times.
Oh, I'm way high. Oh, crap. I'm twice as high. Wow.
That's almost as many times as we usually use them over the course of an average stream.
6 and 7. Can we get an F-bomb count? I think we need a ticker on the bottom of the screen that just dings every time or something.
Well,
somebody put one of those.
Cora's the one that usually counts that kind of stuff. I think one of these days we're just gonna have to get to her ahead of time and be like, yeah, you should count how many times We say the F word. How many times? We'll break it down. Like, how many times do I say it? How many times does Jay say it? How many times does Tex say it?
Right.
I'm willing to bet Tex is going to say it a lot more than most other people.
Considering I have been told I use swear words like punctuation, so it is what it is. But what are you going to do?
So does Aaron, my buddy. My buddy Aaron, who's been on here, from time to time. Every other word is the F word to him. It's like he can't spit out 3 sentences in a row without using the F word at least 4 times. And it's like, so it's like if you go back and watch some of the streams where some of the videos where me and him have been on here together, it's like he breaks the F word meter almost every time he's on camera.
I try not to around parts of my family because they're more hardcore Christian type and they don't like it kind of cussing and whatnot. I try not to, but it just slips out every once in a while. It is what it is, so it's all good. So, what you got?
Well, they say people that swear a lot are actually some of the more honest people. So,
well, it just I look at swearing as, to me, it's therapeutic. Either I can swear a little bit and feel better, or I'm going to yell at somebody. That's kind of how I operate. You know what I mean? So I've got to vent the system, somehow one way or another. So
I feel the same way.
It's fun to do. They're fun words to say. What are you going to do? So good.
Let's see, a little bit more trivia before we get out of here. Paul Verhoeven was actually, we talked about that scene where he beats the dog to death when he first kind of like starts to snap. Paul Verhoeven was investigated by the ASPCA because of the scene in which Sebastian kills the dog. Verhoeven had to show them the raw footage, which showed Kevin Bacon handing the real dog to a veterinarian and then taking a dummy from a crew member before he started beating it against the side of the cage.
So he almost had a cannibal Holocaust situation where he got almost charged with crimes for it. I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
I mean, seriously, I don't blame the ASPCA for wanting to cover their bases and make sure. But if you're an ASPCA person out there, and I love animals, I don't want to mistreat animals at all, like at all. However, you'd have to be 3 brain cells short of a carrot to think that they actually let him beat a dog to death on camera. I mean, you'd have to be a moron to think that was even a possibility. Now, if the ASPCA wanted to release some kind of a statement saying, we think that scene should be cut because it shows cruelty to animals, the reality is you could cut half this fucking movie. They're pumping chemicals into a gorilla. They apparently off camera had done it to mice, dog, monkey. You can complain about all that stuff. But that scene, which is fake, would legit be against the law. They're not going to film Kevin Bacon, a big star, breaking a fucking law on camera and murdering an animal. The kind of thing that he would be thrown in prison for would cost him his career, would cost Paul Verhoeven his career, would cost anybody involved in this movie their career.
Oh, yeah, everybody would be dead.
You can't imagine that was real. You'd have to be dumber than a fucking carrot to think that you would have to investigate that. I mean, seriously, ASPCA, I'm on your guys' side. I want animals to be treated appropriately. I want animals to be treated well. I want them to live comfortable lives. But I cannot imagine somebody so fucking dumb that they watch this movie and were like, oh my God, we need to investigate to make sure this wasn't real. Of course it wasn't real. It's a damn movie, you idiot. What idiot thought they needed to look into that?
I love animals. I mean, I've got many. I've got goats. I've got chickens. I've got everything. But I cannot get with these ASPCA terrorists. These are the same group that go around throwing red liquid on people who wear fur and do everything.
No, that's PETA. PETA and the ASPCA.
Oh, PETA. Okay. Sorry.
PETA are the people that will do like terroristic shit because you have fur.
Yeah, PETA is the ones I don't like.
Yeah, ASPCA, they're the Society of the Association for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. They actually try to, by and large, as far as I know, they actually try to go through like legislative and stuff like that. They actually try to do it the right way. So ASPCA will 100% support it. But I mean, seriously, how do you not know that this is fucking fake? I mean, what idiot listened to another idiot who was even dumber than him and said, we need to go look into this? I mean, you got to know that's not real.
It's 2023. Turn on the news and you can see how stupid people are, or go to any social media. People are idiots. They just, I mean, people are getting dumber the smarter the technology gets. It's just the way that it is. If anybody thinks, "Oh, I've seen Kevin Bacon smash a dog's skull on the side of a metal housing," you're a moron. Just go away. You please don't procreate. We don't need your species continuing. But it is what it is. There's stupid people everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. Nani is kind of with you. He's like, I'm surprised that PETA didn't protest. I mean, maybe all the people in PETA are like, we're not dumb enough to think that actually happened. We'll leave that ignorant shit to the ASPCA.
Now, see, if they did that with the dog, did they also need to see that the gorilla wasn't actually hurt either? Did they need to see that one?
That's what I'm saying. It's like they didn't want to know if the gorilla was actually injected with chemicals.
How about the rat that gets eaten to death by that same gorilla? Did they check on the same rat? I mean, how are we doing?
I feel like it was an attention grab, and I'm really disappointed in the ASPCA for that. On that note, don't forget we're getting close to 500 subscribers. Probably a good time to drop this plug. See, this is how much I like animals. 500 subs. We'll do a charity stream for the abandoned proceeds will go to the Abandoned Pet Project. See, this is I'm on your side, ASPCA. But that was so stupid.
If you subscribe, we promise to never bash animals against the side of a dog kennel. Okay, just subscribe to us. We promise.
Why did you think that actually happened? It's just so dumb. Just come on, ASPCA, be smarter. Now, granted, this is 22 years ago. I'm sure whoever actually initiated that investigation is probably long quit or moved on or whatever. But I mean, come on.
I just hope that they didn't get federal. Dude, if they got federal funding to investigate a CGI dog death, I'm gonna be real upset. I mean, I know we spend a whole lot of money on stupid studies that never get anything out of. But if we federally funded that out of our tax dollars, some senator needs to lose their job for approving that. That's all I'm saying.
For real.
It is what it is.
For real. But a couple more pieces of trivia before we get out of here. Being invisible, Dr. Sebastian Caine, played by Kevin Bacon, spends 80% of the film nude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he would kind of have to, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
I feel like 80% is a bit much because 50 sounds about right. It is kind of early in the film that he decides to put the invisible stuff into his own body. So maybe it is 80%. I don't know, but I would actually have to go back and mark times and stuff like that. And I'm not going to do that. But I don't know. 80% seems like a little much to me, but it could be. I don't know.
He goes invisible in the second act of the movie, right? Like towards the end of the first, right at the beginning of the second. Would you say?
I would say somewhere in the second, which would make 80% feel like a lot to me. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think 80 is a bit much. Maybe 65 at the most. I mean, I don't know, somewhere around in there. I don't know. 50 to 60, I would say, is a safe number, but no, 80 is, a bit much. I agree with you on
that. But one more before we get out of here, Tex. You said you were counting. What's the official body count for this movie per IMDb?
6 humans, 9 with the animals.
Okay. I don't know how they counted. According to IMDb, the body count is 7.
Okay, well,
I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't know if they count the animals, but they got basically, I don't know. We see pretty much the whole crew in this shot. So
yeah,
you've got one, two.
There's 6 right there. No, there's 5 right there.
There's 2 there's 2 people in that picture that die. Not including Kevin Bacon. Then you've got the 2 people that were up in the room that were in heaven, the way they called it.
Yeah.
Then you've got let's see, you've got his professor guy that he drowned in the pool. That's 5.
Yeah. So Redhead.
I'm only coming to 5.
Redhead gets stabbed in the chest. Carlos, he gets throttled and bleeds to death. Kevin Bacon, he dies in the fiery mess. The professor dies.
Are we counting Kevin Bacon?
Well, he dies in the movie. I don't see how you don't.
So that only gets us up to 6.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 6 humans, and then if you count the animals, it would be 9. That's the figure that I came to.
I must be
because you've got
somebody.
the rat, dog, and the gorilla.
I don't think they're counting the animals in all honesty.
Well, they're probably not, but I don't count a seventh death. I count six though, because I mean the ones we just went over. Because you've got, let's see, maybe they're counting the neighbor, but technically we don't see her die.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that she gets killed. So all we know is that he assaults her. So I don't know. I can't think of who the seventh would be. And even if you did count the animals, if I wouldn't count the rat. So if you do count just the dog, then that's 7. But if you are counting all the animals, you'd count the rat too. That'd be 8.
Well,
so that would throw.
If you count all of the human death, including a possible neighbor, it's 7 because there's 6 human deaths. Possibly the neighbor would be maybe 7, and then you have the rat, dog, and gorilla. That would get you to 10. But I don't think the neighbor dies. I think he just molests her, and
I don't think she.
I don't think they're counting the animal. I don't think she. Well, I don't count a death unless we see the person die. That's my hard rule. That's just
and it doesn't. Now maybe there's a deleted scene where it explains that she was killed. Maybe, but it doesn't say so in the movie.
Maybe, but I mean, the last we see of her is when she's backing up towards the bed. And that last shot we get of her or whatever, and then we don't actually see the assault. But
don't have the spy on his neighbor.
I think my number's correct. I think they're wrong. I think it's 6 and then 3 animal deaths. I think they're wrong on that one.
Even in the Wikipedia breakdown of the plot, all it says is that he sneaks into her apartment and does what he does to her.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't say that she died.
No, I think it's for me the number's either 6 or 9 counting animals. But it is what it is.
So the team discovers Linda and Matt go to Kramer's house to confess their experiments. After they leave, Kramer attempts to alert the army. Having followed Linda and Matt to the house, Sebastian cuts off Kramer's phone connection, drowns him in the pool. There's one. The next day, Sebastian waits till the whole team is inside the lab before he disables the phones and elevator codes, except for his own. Rest of the team congregates, sends Sebastian to do at the same time to murder one by one. Janice is his first victim after falling behind the others. Linda and the others hide in the lab while Matt and Carter take Kramer again for Sebastian. Sebastian mortally wounds Carter before getting into a fight with Matt. Matt doesn't die. Linda saves Matt. Sebastian then kills Sarah and Frank and locks an injured Matt and Linda in the freezer, leaving them to die. Linda constructs the magnet thing, the defibrillator. Funny science, but whatever. Bombs for the facility. He's going to keep listening because of the machine. Sebastian in his elevator. Blah blah blah. And then Matt. Well, yes. So far, if you count Kevin Bacon, I'm only getting a 6.
Yeah, like I said, the number has to be 6. Like the only way you can get 7. The only way you can get to 7 is if you count a possible death of the neighbor. Maybe after what he does, he kills her. But if we don't see it, I don't count it. So,
well, even right here in the plot description, all it says is that he accosts her. It doesn't say that he kills her, that she dies.
Right.
He said he accosts her.
Right. So I think they're wrong on that. I think it's 6 humans and 3 animals.
Yeah.
I think there's no way around that.
I just think 6 humans. I don't even count the animals. I mean, if you wanted to count the dog, it would make it 7. But if you're going to count the dog, you're probably also going to count the rat. You're probably also going to count.
Really?
I'm sure they killed a bunch of animals in their tests. So. I don't know if you obviously can't count all them, but
I don't. I mean, God help us if we ever do a death count on a freaking zombie movie. We're gonna have to freeze frame every 2 seconds.
Everybody died.
300. What's the population of? What's the population at the time? That's the death count. But no, it's for this one it wasn't hard because I mean, like I said, 6 deaths. I mean, I don't see 7. Somebody counted different than me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see it either. They're obviously wrong. I may have to send them an email or a harshly worded letter about their about their
Like,
miscount.
actually,
Actually, it was 6, not 7. You see, that's probably why IMDb took down their message board years ago, because there was like so many people that were being toxic on there about all kinds of shit. So it was probably somebody like, actually.
We said it before, but we need what constitutes a death. Like, does the dead body laying on the ground count as a death, or does we have to see like? We need a set standard of rules here of what counts, because otherwise we're playing a freaking guessing game. You know, which is the fun part about it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, that's not for simple minds like ours to ponder, apparently. But let's go ahead and start to wrap this thing up. My man Tex, give us a quick rundown. What are your overall thoughts on Hollow Man?
Solid movie. Not for this is not one you want to share with the family. A sensitivity warning needs to be issued before you do watch this. There is some extreme content. Good film. I enjoy it. Paul Verhoeven, like I said, maybe my favorite of his. Kevin Bacon's great. He goes crazy, and it's fun to watch. Besides the naughty things that he does, and I think it's a must see, especially if you're a scary fan. It's to me, it's the best version of the Invisible Man story. So go check it out.
Yeah, for me, not Verhoeven's best work. It's a bit average for the time period. It was definitely a late '90s, early 2000s kind of thing. As a matter of fact, I forgot to mention, even Paul Verhoeven over the years has not spoken very kindly on this. Let me pull up his quote real quick. I actually meant to have that a minute ago, and I totally forgot to pull it up. But even Verhoeven said he really just kind of did this because he felt like he needed to make a straight up action movie. You know what I mean? Let me see if I can find his quote. Now let's see. Theme, music, release, reception. Let's see. It says here Verhoeven was not happy with the movie in 2013. He told the Hollywood Reporter, "I decided after Hollow Man, this is a movie, the first movie that I made that I thought I should not have made. It made money and this and that, but it really is not me anymore. I think many other people could have done that. I don't think many people could have made RoboCop that way or either Starship Troopers, but Hollow Man, I thought there might be 20 directors in Hollywood who could have done that. I felt depressed with myself after 2002. As of 2022, it says here, Hollow Man is Verhoeven's last film produced by a major American production company, but I think we talked a couple weeks ago that he's got one coming out here the next year or so. So, but yeah, I mean, so even he did not like the movie much as time went on. But yeah, it's like I said, not Verhoeven's best work. Even he acknowledges that. I give him credit for trying to put a more modern take, adding the science and the modern technology and the modern sensibilities at the time, 23 years ago, into an old story. So I appreciate him making the effort. Just not his best work. I think it would have come up much better if he would have tried to have made it a bit more satirical about maybe the Washington establishment, since there is the Washington governmental establishment, since there is a hint of that with them trying to work this for the government, things like that. A bit one-dimensional. It was kind of, guy turns evil, tries to kill everybody. Okay. I mean, it's a basis for a great low-budget horror movie if you're going to rely on the blood and guts, but not great if you're trying to give it a legitimate story that will help carry it to the gory parts. Not really what I would have done with it. But I mean, like I said, I give him a lot of credit for taking an old story and putting a different spin on it. But he said it himself. He just kind of made this to make an action movie. He wasn't trying to give it the societal edge that he gave to a movie like RoboCop or Starship Troopers. So, I mean, again, is it a bad film? No, I think it's average. It's watchable. I mean, I've watched it several times over the years, and like I said, Kevin Bacon's really good at it as an actor. I mean, watching him slip from narcissistic genius into psychotic murder it's interesting to watch, especially from the camera angle showing so many things from his point of view. You get to kind of experience the descent kind of vicariously, the way the movie was shot. But for the most part, that's kind of the only great thing that comes out of the movie. The rest of it to me is very average. It's not fantastic. Let's see, real quick before we get out of here. I did put it to you folks in the poll. 10 of you voted. And let's see. I'll go ahead and close the poll out now. And it's real easy to do the math on this one. 7 of you said you liked Hollow Man. Let's see. Actually, I think it took a dive down to 69%. So 69% of you said you liked Hollow Man. 20% of you said meh. And 10% of you said it was straight poop. That was on 10 votes. Again, I don't want to say it was meh. I don't want to say it was not intriguing in spots. It had its moments, but for the most part, it's not the Verhoeven that I grew up watching in the 90s, throughout the 80s and 90s. You know what I mean? Not his best work. I mean, Total Recall, I think, was a better film by Paul Verhoeven. There was a lot of depth in that movie for being kind of a straight up Arnold Schwarzenegger action film. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a decent movie. You can watch it right now on Tubi for free. It's free with ads. There's a couple of ad breaks in it, but I mean, it's free. What do you want? There's all kinds of good stuff on Tubi. Go watch Tubi. But yeah, I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. Let me know in the comments below after you've watched this. Go check it out on Tubi. Let us know what you thought of the film. But for that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. My friend Tex, what do you got going on, my friend?
Oh, not much. I keep plugging it because it's a passion project. But Saw Timber's coming, and Monday Night Saw is going to be here. Sooner than we realize. The last 3 Mondays in September will be Jeremy and I will be reviewing all 3 Saw films on September the 11th, 1 through 3, and then the corresponding Mondays, the other 6 films in preparation for Saw X. So make sure you're here. Make sure you're subscribed, and come hang out with us. Jeremy and I'll be nerding out. Frank will be in the comments. Who knows? There may even be some other surprise guests that come on that have some good Saw knowledge. So check us out then. And besides that, I'll be watching football. We got college football this weekend, buddy. So I'll be busy. So.
Yeah, it's week 0 in college football. I don't understand what week 0 means.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Whatever.
It is.
Whatever. I don't know. Week 0, whatever. As long as football's being played, whatever. It's that time of year. Let's have football. As far as I'm concerned, you will see me here next Tuesday reviewing whatever the hell it is we're going to review. I'm sure we'll think of something. We'll be back here Thursday, and then immediately after that, I think it's that Monday after that. So we're looking at a week from this coming Monday. So we're looking at about 10 days till you guys start Monday Night Saw. I'm looking forward to what you guys are going to do with that. Looking forward. Jeremy and Texture, I'm giving them the keys to the Cadillac, baby. They're going to do this on their own. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of horror fans in this community, though. I mean, obviously, Night Watch does a lot of horror stuff. There's, Nick and Lost River Drive-In, all kinds of people. American Werewolf New Jersey is really heavy into the horror stuff, so horror and sci-fi stuff. But yeah, so horror is a big draw, not just inside the community of YouTubers that we exist in, but it's also big on YouTube. So it's going to be hopefully good for the channel. Hopefully to be something that you guys will enjoy, and it will all, of course, be a lead up to Saw X, which is coming out soon. Then, of course, we'll be doing our spoiler review of that as well. And so yeah, lots of scary movie, lots of scary stuff. It's going to be on the channel over the course of the next couple of months. So I hope you guys enjoy. Until then, we will see you guys later on. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Adios.
Bye-bye. If I could become invisible, I would just do a YouTube stream where nobody could see me.
I'm really, really sad that Jeremy couldn't make it tonight because he had that great idea of just sitting off to the side of the camera with his headset and just talking like he was the Invisible Man. That would have been perfect. That would have been kind of beautiful cosplay. But, next time.
Jeremy was here the whole time. You just didn't see him. He was right behind Frank. He was actually here.
Right behind me.
Yeah. He's just...